Good morning and welcome to Your Pet Matters and the Collaborative Vet podcast and YouTube show. I'm your host, Michael Dr. T. Tequila, and I am stoked because I've got a wonderful guest today. She's an associate professor at the University of Illinois, and she's a radiation oncologist. So nothing better than dealing with such wonderful specialists. I love it. I love talking to people like this. And so I'd like to welcome Dr. Kim Selting to the show. Kim, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'll tell you a little bit about my background.
Okay.
I grew up in Colorado. I went to undergrad and vet school there. I went away for, I spent a year in France before I went to vet school. I went and did an internship in New York City at the Animal Medical Center after vet school. And then it was time for life for a little bit. So we moved to I was married at the time. We moved to St. Louis and was there for 4 years. I did a year of emergency practice and 3 years of a really great small animal private practice. And, I think probably kind of relevant to some of the things we'll talk about, I'm very grateful for that time. I knew all along that I wanted to do oncology, but my life took me to private practice for a while. And I'm really grateful for that because I think that it really helped me have that perspective, and it really helps me, teach, and it helps me, know a little bit more about how to work with general practitioners when I'm dealing with cancer cases. But I maintained a strong interest in oncology. And so after a few years and after starting a family, I had a baby at the time. We went back to Colorado and did my medical oncology residency there. Had a second child while I was there, and then joined the faculty at the University of Missouri as a medical oncologist, had a third child. and then I was on faculty at Missouri for 15 years. And during that time, I also maintained a strong interest in radiation oncology. And so I constructed alternative residency during my off-clinic time and completed a second residency in radiation oncology, got boarded in radiation oncology in 2013, was there for both medical and radiation oncology for 4 years, and then came here to the University of Illinois about 4.5 years ago to focus on radiation oncology, to make that a focus. So that has been really a fun way to kind of, renew my career. I love what I do. I have a great passion for what I do. I still love treating animals. I love teaching. And it's been fun to kind of shift my focus and do something within oncology where my expertise is, but also, shift to radiation oncology. The program here is, we're growing fast. We have some amazing top of the line equipment, which means that I can do all sorts of fun things with it. And so it's been really an excellent, really a great move for me to come here.
I'm dumbfounded. So I had a classmate who I think she had 2 kids during vet school, and I was just blown away. But what you've done is beyond amazing. But I do have a question. So was this year in France? Was that a break? Was that a job thing? What was that about?
It was a study abroad year. So I, because I came into undergrad with some AP credits, and I got my pre-vet requirements out of the way in 2 years, and I felt like I was too young to go to vet school. I wasn't 21 years old yet. I was trying to decide if I was going to finish a bachelor's before I applied to vet school, or if I wanted to just go straight into vet school. And after a lot of soul searching and talking with some of my professors and some people in my life, I decided that what I really wanted was to be more grown up, was just to have a little bit more life before I dug into something like vet school. So I had always loved the French language and culture, and I had taken French classes, and that was how I fulfilled some of my elective requirements. And I had been to Paris for spring break during high school once and just really loved it. And so I applied and did this year abroad, and I had these, aspirations of going to science classes while I was over there and keeping up with all of that. But that was kind of silly, really. I did like French language and literature and, history of Greek theater and stuff like that. So, wow. I took all this liberal arts classes and I had an amazing time. And that was life before the internet, and that was life before cell phones. So it really was, my dad found an inexpensive flight to Switzerland because that was close enough to France. And so He just flew me over to Switzerland, and then I had to find a train and take a train to, where I was going in France, and find my own way. I was 20 years old, and it was a great life experience. And I just feel like I really became an adult during that year because I had to make all my own decisions and be responsible for them. And really, it was very, epistolary, because I just had the only relationships I maintained were primarily through writing letters and a very occasional phone call, but mostly I was just there on my own. And so it was a great year. It was probably the most formative year in my life.
It's so ironic that you say I wanted to mature, but the whole decision to do this is a mature decision, right? It's so funny.
Well, yeah, or it was just, when you're young and you're indestructible, you just do things that sound good, and maybe without much thought of what it means.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And then, so it's also amazing. So you're having kids through vet school. I mean, I don't want to waste a lot of time on this, but we could do this whole show just on how you got through vet school. So you're dealing with the stressors of vet school. You've got a family. Clearly, you've got an incredibly supportive family network that's allowing you to do this. And, you're definitely balancing time, right? Time between raising kids and doing the studies. That just amazing. Amazing.
I didn't have kids during vet school. I did get married during vet school.
Okay.
And then my internship, and then I started private practice, and I started a family a few years out of my internship. So I think my daughter was 8 months old when I went back for my residency. So I did have kids when I was in my residency and in the first year on faculty. So, after I'd been on faculty for a year, I had 3 kids under the age of 5, 6, something like that. So that was a hectic time. And it was, a time when you start to realize what your limits are. You start to realize, wow, I forgot something really important because my brain is so occupied by all this other stuff. And so after the third, I knew that I was done. I just said, this is my limit. This is what I have time for in my life. And this is pushing it. And I love them all. And it's great. And it's time to move on to the next phase and let them grow up and have these 3 wonderful kids. So
awesome. Yeah. I commend you on these decisions. And the last question I have about your history is you said the benefits of being in private practice. And so I kind of have a gist of what you're talking about, but can you just elaborate on that for our viewing audience?
Yeah, when you go through veterinary school, you're taught the ideal way to do things, and it's less commonly are you taught, well, here's the reality of what it is. For example, in oncology, you're taught never take a mass off without submitting it. Like histopathology is a must, and you just don't even give your clients the option. And I think, ideally, and I had clients who were literally rubbing 2 nickels together that they just wanted to, and there was a mass that had been there for 2 years and it had never grown, but it was on the toe and it was annoying and it was bothering the dog. And, and it's like, you're like, okay, the biologic behavior of that mass is benign. It is almost certainly a benign mass, and the owners can save that $50 or $60 or $80 or $100 or whatever it was at the time. And so my policy for something like that was I just found, creative ways to be responsible. So if I took a mass off a pet and didn't submit it, it went in formalin on my desk for a year. And if it didn't grow back in a year, then I'd throw it away. And if it grew back, and I had just a couple of times where, I had a dog that had a mass on its neck that the owner was living on, public assistance, but it was ulcerated and bothering this teenage dog. And so we took it off and I put it in a jar, and and it grew back about 3-4 months later, and then I submitted it, and it was a basal cell tumor, and then we could make some decisions. So, so you find workarounds. And I think that it is really important as students are learning to be good veterinarians and going out into the world, that they're able to put that in some perspective and to say, not everyone will be able to communicate as beautifully as these people have, and not everyone will be able to have the means to provide the care that they want. And what do you do in that situation? And how do you advocate for the pet and be responsible for the animals? So
that is awesome. Yeah, because that's what we face all the time. Is like, so I have a fairly affluent clientele that we can definitely take steps and do things and submit and everything like that. But absolutely, there's occasional client that comes in, and it's like you see how that match responds. Or the other situation we had recently was this dog's had multiple mast cell tumors, and then there was one right down under here. And so I'm talking to my surgeon friend about what the options are, and he goes, well, if this is really mast cell what needs to be involved is a lot for a geriatric dog. So, it gives us those opportunities to discuss things. Yeah. No, that's
also the thing that you learn is how to prioritize things, because it's easy to say, oh, it's an older dog, I'll do a CBC chemistry, urinalysis, chest raz, this, that, and the other, but to really think through and say, if I could do, I always ask myself, if I could do just one test, what would it be? If the owner could afford something more than the exam, what would I do? If it's a mast cell tumor, I do a lymph node aspirate. If it's so try to break it down and say, what's the one test that will help me the most to get to the next step? And what will I do with that information? Because you should only ever do a test if it's going to change what you do, or if it changes the owner's understanding of what's going on, so that they can make good decisions.
That's awesome. Excellent. That's excellent. So you young vets out there, that is probably a huge point of advice that will definitely benefit you in private practice.